Hi everyone, welcome to the channel. Today we're going to be looking at basic movement in Blender with both using the Move tool and the keyboard shortcut G. And that's a keyboard shortcut for grab. We're going to be looking at locking the axes, removing an axis from the selection so we can move along, say, the XY or the XZ and remove a single axis from there. We're going to be looking at exact placement and also around the 3D cursor. So first thing I want to show you is how to move an object. We've got the basic cube in front of us. So to move the object, I have to left click on the cube to select it. And I can either use the move tool from the left hand side here. I'll click on that. I can then move it along the different axes there. So the blue is the Z, the green is the Y, and the red is the X. And you can see that from this gimbal at the top right. So we can place that wherever we want, like so. Now, if we want to move this more accurately, I can use the keyboard and actually type in a location. So I can grab, say, along the Z. So I've pulled it up along the Z. And while I've got the mouse pressed, the left mouse button, I can type in, say, 1. And if we look at the top, you see the D. And if I move this over here, you can see along here, the D is now set to 1. If I release the mouse button, then that's all taken there. Now notice that when I move this, we look to the top left, that's in meters. Now, if we look to the right hand side here and come down to this icon here, the scene properties, then we can come down to the units and change the units. At the moment, my unit system is in metric. My unit scale is at 1. And if I come down, I can see that my length is in meters. Let's change this to millimeters now. So now we're in millimeters. And if I start to move this, if you look to the top left, we're now moving this in millimeter increments. So I'm holding down with the mouse. So if I bring this over, so if I drag this over and then type on my keyboard in 10, you can see that we've moved 10 millimeters. And by the side of it, you got 10 equals 1 centimeter. So that's moved that 1 centimeter or 10 millimeters along the X. Now we don't have to use the move tool. We can use keyboard shortcuts as well. So I'm just going to come back over to the select tool. Make sure it's selected, and I'm going to hit G on the keyboard for grab. I've just hit G. If I look down to the bottom, you can see that we've got a number of different options to pick from. So always look down to the far bottom, and you can see the keys that we can press. So for instance, I can move this up to here and press X once on the keyboard, and that places me along the X axis. So I've locked myself to the X axis. If I hit Y, it locks me to the Y axis. If I click here, that will set it. So left mouse button click, hit the G again, and then hit X to go along the X axis. You see we've got the X axis now running this way. So I've locked it down. No matter if I go to the right here, that's locked down on that X axis. And I can type in to the X axis whatever I want as well. So I'm going to type in 12. Let's go 123. Let's move it to 123. Let's delete that. Hit delete on the keyboard. If you look at the top left, 300. Move that 300 millimeters. Go for 3000. And we just click to accept. So that's moved that way, 3000 millimeters. I can drop the scaling down, so I can come over to the scene and drop this scaling down to 0.001. Therefore, I'm working at a much more precise scale. So if I hit G on the keyboard now to pick up that cube, hit the X axis and hit 3 millimeters now, you can see the scaling is much more precise. So if I hit 30, that's gone off the screen. So I'm going to hit delete just so you can see the top here. We've got 3. And if I delete and go 10, you can see that's moved 10 millimeters now from the point where it was last at. So I click, that's moved now. Come over to the right hand side, we can see we've got this icon here, the object properties. And this gives the location of that object. And we can move this as well to the correct location. So we can move it along the X, the Y, etc. Let's say we've moved this somewhere over here. So I've moved it somewhere over here, and I'm happy with the Z axis. So I've got it along this Z axis, and I only want to move it along the X and the Y. So we click it and hit G on the keyboard. This is free now, as you can see. If I hold down the Shift key and hit Z, then what I've done, now taking my hand off the keyboard, is I've locked it along the Z axis, but I can move it along the X and the Y axis. So I can't move it up and down. I've just locked it along those axes there. Hit Escape and grab that again. And this time I'm going to hold down Shift and hit X. And you can see I can move it along the Z, or I can move it along the Y axis there. Let's say I placed it over here. How do I get this object back to the center? Well, this is where the 3D cursor comes in handy. The 3D cursor, this icon here, can be moved into different places. And if I zoom in a bit, so let's zoom into this object over here, move this and zoom right in. If I click on the different faces, you can see the 3D cursor has snapped those faces, and that's used this point here. And you're probably wondering why I'm telling you about this. Well, the 3D cursor allows you to place this accurately at a given position. So we could lock this 3D cursor. Let's say let's use the select and click this light here. And I can right click and go snap. Let's do it over here. Right click, snap, got the light selected, and cursor to selected. The cursor moves from the cube and is placed on the light. And then I can select the object, making sure my select has been selected. And then I can right click and go selection to cursor. So that moves that selection to that cursor. I'm just going to hit G to grab that and place it back over here. So how do I get this cursor back into the center and this cube back into the center? Well, it's quite easy. Right click, snap, and cursor to world origin. That places it in the center there. And then we can right click once this has been selected. So select the cube, right click, snap, and selection to cursor. And that's placed that cube where that cursor is. There are other snapping methods for the 3D cursor, such as if I come in object and duplicate object. So I've duplicated that object now, and because it's in grab mode, let's hit Y on the keyboard and place it here. What I can do is move the 3D cursor to say somewhere over here, and then let's box select those. And what I'm going to do is come in, right click, come down to snap, and then come down, and I want to select selection to cursor, keep offset. So this will keep the offset between those two objects, and it'll place it in the position where that cursor is in the middle. And what I'm going to do is go snap, cursor to world origin, take both of these, shift select them, right click, snap, selected, cursor, keep offset. If I selected both of those and used the other one, which was just the basic, right click, snap, and selection to cursor, then they'll be placed on top of each other. Another way of getting that 3D cursor into the middle, click on 3D cursor and place it over here. If I used Shift and C, that will place that cursor in the center and also will reset my scene. So reset the viewpoint of my scene. So this is great when you get lost. Say let's go right out here. The 3D cursor is over here somewhere. If I hit the Shift key on the keyboard and C, then that resets my scene. Also, there's a Shift key and S, and this will bring up the snapping options here. So you can see the snapping options here. So I can move my 3D cursor using the cursor, place it over here somewhere. I can use Shift and S on the keyboard, and we'll go cursor to active, place it along the active object there. So there's a quick introduction to moving stuff on screen and a quick introduction to the 3D cursor. I hope that's of use, and I hope to see you again in the new video. If you're enjoying these videos and you would like to support the channel, then you can do so via my Ko-Fi page. That's at ko-fi.com/MJ3D Studio. Any donations will be used to help expand the channel. I'd like to thank you all for watching, and I hope to see you again soon.